Good morning, everyone. It's my privilege and honor to be here in Sydney. I'm Juha. I'm originally from Finland, and Jukka. We're both Finns, so we're actually coping quite well with the Australian weather. This is like a summer to us, hot summer. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. What we are going to talk is we're talking to deliver a BIM automatically into XR environment into Unity. Oh, I might as well take. Where did I put the?
On your,
Where's the clicker?
on your back pocket? Probably.
No. It's. Did you guys take the clicker from there? Oh, it's here. So what our mission is? So our mission is to help you guys to deliver the BIMs into XR environment, and this is what's going to happen in just minutes in the real time. We're bringing the BIM data all the way to Unity. So instead of old-fashioned ways, we are doing everything automatically. So you don't need to do the manual part in between. So I assume that quite many of you are in the AEC environment. You work with the architectural environment, right? So great. So then you've probably been in a situation where your client comes and says to you that, oh, by the way, in 2 weeks I need a full-blown VR environment, maybe including a bicycle tour around the campus, right? And then you receive this. I guarantee you have no free time for the next 2 weeks. This is actually the real BIM from the hospital project from Finland. And yes, it was the same thing. Maybe not 2 weeks, but a few weeks to come up with the full-blown virtual environment. So you know what it means when you receive the BIM, you receive this kind of a mesh, and then you start to think about your workflow. Shall I take it to a manual workflow? Takes days, if not weeks, just to do the refining, to do these kind of things. So the industry problem actually is that you receive the BIM, then you need to do all the cleanups, all the things to get the things XR ready, or VR, AR, XR ready. You need to set up the materials, which are, yes, in a BIM, but not in a game engine. You need to do colliders in order to actually have the VR environment. You need to set up the lights, maybe room by room or maybe fixture by fixture. How much time that kind of leaves you to be creative? Nothing, because all the time is basically used for this so-called boring part. So what we have done with Threadify, we have automated the boring part. So now the cleanup, refining things, which is typically taking days, if not weeks, is now done in minutes. It is true. So it actually, the convert, which is a cloud-based service, only takes a minute to get you to the stage that you can actually start developing your own application, your own creative part. So now instead of using the whole time of your project just to get it to VR, you can actually be and start building your own features, your own applications around it. The beauty of this is that you are also bringing the BIM data along. What it means? So basically, all the BIM softwares are compatible with our service. Is it Revit, ArchiCAD, Bentley, Vectorworks, and 100 others? They are all compatible. Why? Because we are using the IFC, which is an industry standard, .ifc format, to bring the software, the CAD software into the cloud. Then our software does the convert, Via the Treatify API, we are bringing and downloading that to Unity. In Unity Asset Store, we are having Treatify BIM tools, which I will show just in a minute what they are, and then Jukka will actually show in a real Unity environment what can you do with it. So with those BIM tools and together with the already converted file, you can start creating your own application in Unity. And now you can use VR application, AR application, web, or any other type of application you can come up with. So what does it mean to bring the BIM data along? So now in a Unity environment, instead of using formats like FBX or any of these, you will bring the original data, which is in a CAD file. So it means you might have or need manufacturing information, you might need types, materials, sizes, etc. All that, what you have in the CAD is also in the Unity now. What can you do with it? So firstly, you might use it for search functions. So if you, for example, you have a 30-store, 50-store building, and you want to do something to all the external windows, for example. You just search with the parameters external windows, and it selects all the windows from the whole building, not one by one, but it selects all the same type of the objects. Then you can set materials or colliders, whatever you want to do to those at one go. So now instead of clicking every single item, you can select them all and use 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you have the functions. Or doors, for example. You might want to set up some kind of animations that once you walk towards the door, it opens for you. You can do that for all the doors in a building. Material mapping. So in CAD, you do have a certain materials. So steel is steel, but it might not look real, but it's defined as a certain type. We are mapping, based on, again, that BIM data, we are mapping materials from a CAD to game engine materials. So basically, you can have your own material library or predefined material library and map them in your application then. What does it mean? So for example, wooden floor looks like it's black when it comes from a CAD, or it might look like gray. Then you change that to real looking or exactly looking like you have in a final project. So that again is enabled by the BIM data attached. What else? Probably one of the most time-consuming part is lighting. So what we do, we provide you the automatic lighting to the whole building. So how? So basically our system checks the closed environments and sets up the lights automatically. And this is a global lighting, not the lighting fixtures, but the global lighting. So you get good enough lighting to the entire environment. So all the rooms are now lighting up automatically. So basically it creates the light probes and lighting environment that it lights up. And Jukka will tell this a little bit more in detail, but it lights up the whole building at one go. So it checks the areas, and based on that, it does the lighting. In addition to these tools, you can use it in a high definition environment as well. So quite often, especially previously with the VR application, the customers, especially in a construction, are saying that, by the way, you need to have a photorealistic environment. So this is not good enough. Now the Unity is offering the high definition render pipeline, which we can cope with. So you can come up with pretty realistic looking environment. Again, this is available with Treatify Convert. So in addition to these tools, what we are having, we're now also launching Treatify Realtime API. What is this? So this is something that you can have your assets built in Unity. You can have them in a cloud and accessible at any time with your application. So now, basically the built assets, you don't need to store them locally and kind of load your capacity. You can have them stored in a cloud and then access them real time with your application. So now we will go through the real environment, real environment in a Unity, and show a couple of examples what can be done. And this part, please be interactive. Ask Jukka that, okay, how do I do this? What can I achieve with this? And so on. So please, Jukka.
All right, so let's start with the basics. So I'm going to show a little bit first of cloud service and then go to Unity and see what's happening. So this is our cloud service, really easy to use and not that interactive. So only thing what you do is just go to your files and upload your IFC files in here. So
this is basically a workflow.
Yeah.
So how do you start once you do have your CAD file? So what do you need to do? You export that to IFC format, and then here you go.
So once you have uploaded, we do verify that it actually works in our system. So no worries there. If it's just validated, you are golden. So what you can do then is start the conversion. You can do different things. There's couple of help functions that you can split the data by story, or you can actually generate ceilings if you need to, because usually what happens is that you don't have to function. You want to have closed spaces in VR. So what we do is we provide like floor slabs from the upper level to copy it automatically to lower level, so you get closed environments easily. So it's just the data management. What we used to do these VR applications 100-fold, so these are just helpful functions you need to do anyway every time. So that's basically it. It just converts it automatically, and then you get the result in Unity. So let's go to Unity. What we do is you have the functionality to get your converted project to the Unity environment.
This when you do the kind of create the ceiling and create the closed environment, enables you to utilize the lighting as well. For example, you have the upper store in your CAD file, and it doesn't have the roof in the file. So it can't create the lighting either, because it's not the closed environment. So that's the reason it's better to create the ceiling, even though it's not in a CAD. But it kind of closes the upper floor, so it can calculate the space for lighting.
Luckily, that's not always true. So you don't need, most of the time you actually don't need to do that. So we can manage the data without any additional, just push it through and everything works well. It's some things, if you need it, use it. If you don't, you really don't need to. So I'm gonna a little bit showcase what this look like when the actual conversion is done. So I'm gonna, hopefully the net connection is good enough. Okay, yes it is. So what you can see is what I did is just split it by the level. So I can see all the different types of objects that are in there. If I need to import something, or if I don't basically want to import something like some fixture data, or let's say you have structure data inside walls, it's a different type of object, so you don't need to import that. So you just import whatever you need. Like if you might have HVAC or heating or whatever, you can import that only, or just the air condition units or whatever. So once you start importing, what we do is I already imported because it takes a couple of minutes to get it done. So in once we have it here, what we can do is check out what's going on. So I just click on window there, and here's the BIM data itself. So it actually knows it's a window. So good for us because we can find it by using searches and find the data. It also had all the information that you added in CAD, like manufacturer data, or these are like that it's external, or reference of family names or whatever you had in already. So now that we have that, what we can do is search things. So I'm gonna open up our search tool. There we go. So what we can do with this is we can search different kinds of information. We can also like use the Unity search types like game object searches or tags or whatever. You can search these, and you can use the GUIDs or names or properties what you have set. Or I'm gonna just use a predefined searches like I wanted to do external elements, because what I do is I have a scene outside. I just wanna have the external elements of the building and see how it looks from outside, just to make it more light. So let's say I'm gonna search that, and there you go. All the external parts of the building is found due to the data. Or I need to create anyway colliders, so I might find all the floor slabs. So let's see where the floors. Door covering column slab. There we go. So search and select. So that way, there's all the four slabs. So what I'm gonna do now, it's just okay. I need to add a collider there. Physics. Let's say box collider. There you go. Now you can walk around in there. So also what you do is just select all the wall elements, because we don't want to walk through walls. One click, I already predefined searches. There we go. Add the colliders there too. So physics box collider. Let's say it doesn't matter what collider you are using. So now that we have set the colliders, what we need to do next is put the materials in, because that's always fun. Looks better. So we have this material replacement tool. What it does is it goes through whole building, and it finds all these materials on the CAD. You can actually map them individually to each object type or material type. But what we do is, I already did this once, so I just gonna load my previous one. What it does, it just finds all the replacing materials. There's some from the previous one that didn't get mapped, so I'm gonna map them individually to something else. So now I'm gonna apply it to scene. There we go. So let's go check it out. So yeah, there we go. All the materials are mapped automatically. So beauty of it is that you don't actually need to know where the material is or which object is it placed to. You just use the data to get it done. And you don't need to go to the Unity material tool and go check it out. What was it and what should I replace it with, because usually it's not that helpful to do that. So now we have material set, we have collider set, we need to set lights. So let's go to 3D lighting tool. Yeah, what it does is it just finds all the levels of the building. Basically, it just checks out, do I find a ceiling on this level? If there's no ceiling, is there a floor on top that I can use as a ceiling? So that way it goes green if needed. Seems to be that the subfloor doesn't have even a floor because somebody forgot to do that. It doesn't matter. No problem, you don't need to do that. What you can do also, like if you don't have good BIMs, this happens many times. So what you can do is you can define floors. So if you go through whole building, it seems to be one is on red, they can't find floors. So might be that floor is named as a ceiling, or the type is something weird. It happens all the time. Not saying we have seen only once, we have seen almost every time. But well, it depends on who is the BIM dude on the other end. So What we can do also is define blocking objects. That means that if you have like cupboards on the sides of the room, or some fixtures that you don't want the light be on top because it's going to create a little bit bad lighting. So like you might have some channel going through the whole room that you don't want light on top. You just define it as a blocked object, so it doesn't go on top and the render light wrongly. So this is just a helpful function to get better light maps for you. So once you do that, what you can do also is there's a lot of settings of size of the lights we are going to create, or actually this is the one you can do. You can drag in any object there. So if I would like to actually create just point lights on the points that we decided on are good ones, you just drag a point light here, or duck, or whatever you decide on putting there. So it creates, like in HD render pipeline, you probably don't want to bake lights, so you're gonna have real-time lights on there. You're gonna put spotlights or whatever you decide on putting there. But it creates in places that the light should be to create basic light. So it doesn't matter if it's HD render pipeline or you are baking it. So now I'm gonna just create the floor lighting, because it seems to be that the automatic definition was good enough. So it goes through all the levels of the building, or stories, whatever the name are. Okay, there we go. We have created something. So let me just put the gizmos off so we can see something. All right. Okay, there seem to be light planes on the top. These are actually just, if we check it out, so they are just planes that has an emissive material on them. So what you do now is definitely only thing, the way to go is just bake them and then get the light maps and everything okay. So, but before I'm gonna actually not gonna bake them, but I'm gonna show you a little bit how they look. So let's take a couple of levels off. We're gonna do that, go outside, better view, and there we go. So these are the emissive plane that we have created. So what it does is finds areas and creates different size of lights depending on area size and where the blocking objects are, and where the walls are and things like that. So that way you get the, I'm going to show you when I already baked this, and I'm going to show you how it's going to look afterwards. But now that you have that, everything's okay. But what we do also is create the light probe cages. So this is quite nice to do by hand if you want to, because to be able to create all these light probes in the whole building once, about 20,000 or so, gonna take you a while. This is done automatically, and these don't go inside the block objects also. So you can create animated objects, and lights are looking good, or moving object in real time, so the lights are reflected correctly on each object. So once we have that,
can you please elaborate a little what it actually means if you have a moving object, or you have a table which you're moving around?
Yeah, well,
what is the effect?
Yeah, so if we might have on this end a blue light and yellow light on another end, once we start moving the object from top to bottom, it changes the color of the light reflected from the object itself. So that way you have like, it looks real, even if you have blue light there. If we don't have light probe cages, nothing happens. But now that we have, it seems to more real. So I'm gonna show you guys how it looks baked. So there we go. Oh, sorry. Let's go inside. So this is a basic light, how it's gonna look after baked. So you get global illumination running quite smoothly the whole building. So to be able to cut to this is probably, yeah, from start to end, I used like 10 minutes. You guys might manually do a week or I don't know, might take a while. So these are the functionalities what we provide. Basically, now you are in a situation you have a CAD model in Unity, you have materials, you have colliders, you have lights, you have baked them, then you're gonna create the application. So you get to this point in an hour or something. So depends on the size of your conversion. So what I'm gonna show you next is just an application that I did in hour or two.
And while you're opening that, is that basically the size of your CAD doesn't affect the conversion time. Conversion is done once you've uploaded it there. Conversion is done in a cloud, in right now Amazon AWS cloud. So they have plenty of capacity there. So it actually is irrelevant what is the size of your file and what is the size of your project. It doesn't take much longer in terms of a conversion.
So this is using HD render pipeline. So just what I did, I bring it in, change the materials, add colliders, create the automatic lighting, and what I did is also just drag and walking camera there. So this is the quality where you get. I'm gonna move a little bit quicker to the better places to look at. So to get to this point, it took me 2 hours to get there. I converted, I tweaked one material, the glass or the mirror. I added the functionality that actually reflects something, but that's the only thing I did. So to get to these points, usually you are gonna take a 3-week workload. And I bring a couple of objects here from our object library. So this is what we do, and to get to the application itself, now it's trivial since the content comes in fast. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you can search anything. That's the beauty of it. Is that even if you are using Unity game object things, you can search them too. So we provide all the the idea of the search is more with the BIM data or CAD data, but you can use it any search now. We did it for ourselves because the Unity search didn't work for us the way it was intended. So as a basic workflow, we just did it ourselves and it works a little bit better. I'm not saying Unity is doing something wrong, but we just like to use faster ways to do that. Like I'm gonna show, the idea here, if you think about it like data-wise, so when we search things, let's say you have a functionality that you wanna showcase how is the building is gonna actually be built. So what you might do is you might have project phasing on the BIM data. So phase 1 that, phase 2 that, phase 3 that. So since the data is there, you just because this is SDK, you can do the searches real time. So what you do is just phase 1 show this part, phase 2 show that part. So you don't need to know which objects are involved. You just use the data to showcase how the building is going to be built if the BIM data is there. So to get rid of all these, that's not the right object, that's not in the right place. You go to the origin, say, you guys know better, do your data as it should be. I'm going to just show it what you putting there. So that way you get rid of all these conversations where you said, well, that's not right. Yeah, because it's on the original wrong. So that way you have one master data. The visualization is just a visualization of today. Next week, they're going to change that. What you do? Well, you push it through. Your materials are already saved, the mapping, you load that, you click the lights, you put the colliders on, and 1 hour and you have a new application. So that's the mentality of the BIM data and the workflow itself. So it doesn't matter how many iterations you are going to do on the original BIM. Now you can do the same in VR every time.
Is there a way to feed back the information from your output? So if I'd like the VR model and I want to change the floor to wood, that comes back as a change list to the BIM data?
Currently, no. What I usually suggest is that if you are like might have like a BIM server that BIM 360 or something like that. There's an API for that. API to insert data, API for whatever. You just create the one call because the IDs are same. That's the beauty of it. IDs in Unity now is the same that in your BIM 360. So what you do is just call that API on the data itself and change the data in there. So you actually create one call from your application to that. So also if you think about the application after this, use the data in the real servers, not have change data here and think about how I'm gonna put that data in there. You are gonna actually create a live data point. So whenever I click an object, just fetch the data from BIM 360 or wherever. Since the IDs are same, you have that availability. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, but that is a good question because it's quite often asked. Can you actually bring it back to Revit or?
Yeah. Also, if you think about like facilities management where the 3D doesn't change, only data changes. So what you want to do is every time have a real-time data. So the API called the real-time data and pushing from here to there is just trivial now. Since the IDs are same, the content is same, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to always do the 3D part. You just, because the data here is separated from the 3D. It just map back in each object. So what we are going to provide at some point is just data. If you have the data, you can keep it on a server, just fine. But I usually recommend everybody that use the real place where you keep the master data because it's always out of sync anyway. So if you have it somewhere else. Any other questions?
Yeah, please feel free.
Yeah.
What about, we always get right 1 week before
Yeah.
delivering
Yep.
the model.
Yep.
We've already gone through Unity and animated all the doors.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there an update workflow?
Yep. We are working on that now that you actually just push the changes in and it changes everything. It's not ready yet, but the idea there is that once you have done the animations to the doors or something like that, you might think about how you are going to do that. Are you doing it procedurally or are you doing it with the code? Probably you should move away from like Unity animation and do it using code because that way you just map it back and you search them and map the code back. So it's more like how you should do that, the updating, not the there's a lot of things you need to consider when you're updating the 3D. But yeah, we are working on more smooth way to update the geometry only. So that's one thing. Well, now it works quite nicely. Just delete one floor and bring back another one. Everything stays the same. But if you start stating naming conventions on the CAD, or if you start using the Unity animations and things like that, they use the object-based, and then that's really hard to use. But also, if you have the animation as a separate thing, you search all the doors and attach the animation in back. So that way you don't need to care about if you create 5 new doors. So that way you just drag the animation to all the doors automatically.
And of course the good thing is that the conversion automation is still only in minutes. So once you do the changes, you're back there, and then you add, like Jukka said, you add the animations.
Yeah, also like if you're baking light maps, if you bring new objects, you need to bake them anyway. So that way you need to actually have the lights in there. Well, you don't need to delete the lights when you update, so everything's just click bake and everything's there. So that's one way to go.
Any others, please?
Yep.
Is it easy to just bring like individual elements from here and like make changes in a 3D package, like modifying UVs or the actual geometry?
Yeah, it's really easy. Actually, what we do is on a cloud service we create already UVs on each object automatically. So if you push textures in, it works nicely. If you want to have all these on here when you import are Collada files. They are on a project. So you go in your project file, you can find the actual file in there. So you can change it, but once you start changing like IDs on there, it doesn't map back the data again. But basically, it's just trivial. If you want to do some refining of the objects or whatever, you can do that. There's a Collada file in there, what you can use and do whatever you decide on doing.
Any others? If not, we definitely want to thank you, and please come to our booth. We can also talk a little bit more about the roadmaps and so on individually if you're interested on what's happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.